and I'm your moderator all the way from Johannesburg. It's lovely to spend this day with you. Now, this event is available in English, French, or Portuguese. We want to be inclusive. We want everybody to participate. You can select your preferred language. Please also make sure to leave your questions in the chat, and we'll aim to answer as many as we can at the end of the session. And I just want to emphasize this because we want this to be a conversation. We want to enhance the interactivity. So do pose your questions, do pose your comments. And even if we don't get to answer your question, don't despair. At least it gives us a sense of your thought processes, your experiences, and your feedback. So keep engaging with us and we'll pick up as much of that as possible. So this year marked the start of the 10-year countdown to the Sustainable Development Goals, but the road to reaching them has never looked more treacherous. Robust monitoring and evaluating systems have a vital role to play in helping us stay on track. Now, in the spirit of Indaba, Indaba is a Zulu word for a gathering, coming together, a discussion, dialogue. We have brought together a range of voices from across the African continent to talk about how we can work together to build these very, very critical systems. But this is also a global coming together, as we'll be discussing a new partnership that is the Global Evaluation Initiative that proposes a new way of working together on a global scale to build up monitoring and evaluation capacities worldwide. But first, we'd like everyone to just think about it for a minute, to just consider the scale of the challenge before us by taking part in a poll. This is very easy. You just click on the link, and let us know what you believe is the percentage of countries with national development strategies based on the sustainable goals that actually have the data and systems to track the implementation of those strategies. So very simply, I'll go through that again. You just click on the link. We want to get your thoughts. What you believe is the percentage of countries with national development strategies based on the sustainable goals that actually have the data and systems to track the implementation of those strategies. I'll just give you just a few seconds to write down your answer. I hope everyone is able to navigate the link. It should be very, very simple. Okay, there we go. I see your answers coming in. I see you participating. There are others who have answered. Okay, the numbers are still changing. Another is hitting the 90s. There we go. All right, I'm going to give you the answer right now because it seems like we have a general consensus and I'm fascinated by how fast that came. The answer is only 35% of countries. Only 35%. And of course, this should give everyone a sense of the worldwide gap in monitoring and evaluation capacity. Without evidence to keep them on track to the Sustainable Development Goals, many countries really risk being left behind. So I think we all have our work cut out for us. The governments of Africa have their work cut out for them, and their partners, the donor community, the international space, you have your work cut out for you if 35% of countries are at this point. So let's now turn to the region. It's a pleasure to hear from the Vice Minister of Finance, I beg your pardon, Vice Minister of Finance of Mozambique, Dr. Carla Alexandra Oreste de Rosario Fernandes Luveria, recorded this message for the conference on what's at stake in the development of monitoring and evaluation capacities in Africa. Let's take a listen.
Excelentíssima Senhora Alison Evans,
Honorable Ms. Alison Evans, Director General of the Independent Evaluation Group at the World Bank, Honorable Mr. Oscar Garcia, Director of the Independent Evaluation Office at the United Nations Development Program, Excellencies, it is with great honor that I, on behalf of the government of Mozambique, take the floor at the Africa Evaluation Indaba on the challenges in monitoring and evaluation in Africa and the launching of the Global Evaluation Initiative. which is the fruition of an important partnership to develop the capacity to monitor government programs and development agencies in Africa. The monitoring and evaluation process is essential for governance and the development of evidence-based policies. We, we recognize that monitoring and evaluation practices generate evidence of whether or not public policies are effective. Thus, they are a powerful decision-making tool for managers. By using monitoring and evaluation techniques, government can better understand the results of their interventions and make better choices as to what policies to pursue and what adjustments are required. It is for this reason that the primary planning tools used by the government of Mozambique are monitored and evaluated both at the central and local levels through periodic reviews of the planning and budgeting tools with medium-term evaluation reports. We should note that the monitoring and evaluation tools in Mozambique will become part of the new monitoring and evaluation subsystem that will be integrated into the state financial management system called SISTAFI. The purpose of the new monitoring and evaluation subsystem is to ensure greater support for managers at all levels to monitor and evaluate their activities, as well as to identify and minimize risks in order to achieve the established goals. We established indicators for products and results related to the results-oriented approach to program planning. The government does believe that these innovations in monitoring and evaluation system will help to improve public financial management and public policy development. Another aspect of monitoring and evaluation that I would like to point out has to do with important measures that Mozambique has undertaken to pursue the Sustainable Development Goals and to improve monitoring of such goals through the following actions: by integrating the SDGs, including their indicators and aims, in the national development and budgeting plans, and by creating the National Reference Group for the Sustainable Development Goals, which includes the government, the National Assembly, international cooperation partners, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and the private sector, in order to ensure the collaboration, coordination, and monitoring of the 2030 Agenda implementation process. In this regard, the first National Voluntary Review Report on the 2030 Agenda was issued and presented at the United Nations High-Level Forum in the first half of 2020. Please note that our country recognized the importance of monitoring and evaluation in providing evidence for decision-making and accountability, particularly now when we, like other countries in the world, are facing the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Notwithstanding the progress achieved in monitoring and evaluation, there remain some urgent challenges on which the initiative may focus, namely with respect to data reliability, the timely and regular generation of statistical information to be fed into the development of economic and social policies, as well as the development of databases and data use for greater accountability and transparency in governance. In closing, I would like to stress that considering the challenges that I mentioned, combined with the lack of resources in most African countries to finance monitoring and evaluation systems, we congratulate our partners at the World Bank and UNDP for giving priority and pushing forward with this global evaluation initiative. Therefore, we are open to continue working with the World Bank, UNDP, and our other international cooperation partners in order to further strengthen monitoring and evaluation systems. Thank you very much for your attention.
A big thank you to the Vice Minister there, and I think there are so many powerful themes that she touched on, one of it being the evidence-based policies, that these can only come about if we are able to monitor and evaluate them. And she also used the term monitoring and evaluation are powerful decision-making tools, and our societies will thrive when this is strengthened. Thank you so very much, Vice Minister. We move on to our first panel discussion, a new initiative launched this very week aimed at closing the global gap in monitoring and evaluation capacities, the Global Evaluation Initiative. So to discuss this new initiative and what it might mean for Africa, I'm very delighted to welcome Alison Evans, who's the Director General of the World Bank Group's Independent Evaluation Group, and Oscar Garcia, who's the Director of UNDP's Independent Evaluation Office. That's the United Nations Development Programme's Independent Evaluation Office. So thank you very much. You're most welcome. So let me start with you, Alison. Why the Global Evaluation Initiative and the timing? Why now?
Thank you so much, Reddy, and also thank you so much to the African Evaluation Indaba for hosting us with this launch today. It's terrific to be here. And thank you so much to the Vice Minister, I think, for setting us up in an absolutely brilliant way in her opening remarks. So let me just start with the idea that this is the Global Evaluation Initiative responds in many ways to an old problem, but seeks to tackle it in new ways. Before I say more about that, let me talk a little bit about the journey. How have we got here? So in September of last year, we hosted a conference with the African Evaluation Association in Accra, Ghana, on evaluation capacity development in Africa. And I'm pleased to see that some of the participants in that conference are joining us today. Now, there were 24 countries represented at that conference, and much like today, discussions were conducted in English, in French, and Portuguese. But even with all that diversity, and the discussions were absolutely fantastic, there was one clear message coming through from that event. All participants were committed to promoting a culture of evaluation and creating the conditions for greater use of evaluative evidence to inform public policies, very much like what we just heard from the Vice Minister. But there was also clear demand, a real need for support in strengthening systems of both monitoring and evaluation to deliver that evidence and to support learning from both public policies, but also across systems and across countries. Now, we've had similar kinds of conversations and requests for support from Asia, Latin America, and other regions. I think the poll that started today's conference gave everyone a sense of the large global gap in monitoring and evaluation capacity. Countries are committed to building their capabilities in this space, but the demand for support to close the gap outstrips the resources and bandwidth of any single institution. This is a global challenge. And like all global challenges, it requires sustained and coordinated action among a diverse group of actors to address it. So the Global Evaluation Initiative is an idea in a way that's come of age. It's a broad and inclusive partnership that aims to act as a platform, if you will, bringing together those diverse actors, from donor to partner countries, international and regional organizations, government and independent evaluators, who will need to work together in a more coordinated way to close the global gap in monitoring and evaluation capacity. While it's a global initiative, the core focus of GEI is on the country level and focuses on supporting countries as they draw on local and regional knowledge and experience, adapt global knowledge to their circumstances, and develop monitoring and evaluation systems that are relevant to their environment and their needs, and build the tools they need to support learning and accountability. The partnership platform will meet demand for support by linking countries with local, regional, and a global supply of evaluation knowledge, resources, and skills. Now, just for the last thought, I think on the supply side, if you are, there are many effective programs supporting monitoring and evaluation, but many of them can't go to scale and find it difficult to align their work with one another. So through better coordination, the Global Evaluation Initiative aims to increase our multiple impact, the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, if you like, bringing together organizations such as the Independent Evaluation Group of the World Bank and that of my colleague Oscar's Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP, better coordinating activities, pooling resources. We aim to scale up the effort to meet the scale of demand. This is, as you said, Reddy, as the Vice Minister has said, a critical agenda. It's an urgent agenda, and we really hope that the Global Evaluation Initiative will play a crucial part.
Thank you so very much, Alison. And Oscar, let me just turn to you. Policymakers are facing the immediate challenge of the pandemic. How do they now look beyond to longer term goals such as the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and what role does monitoring and evaluation play in this?
Thank you very much for such a good question, Reddy, and I am delighted to be joining this webinar. Greetings from New York to all of you. Actually, and the policymakers around the world are indeed focused on the immediate challenges of the pandemic, the COVID-19. This pandemic has turned our world upside down, unleashing a human development crisis. The Sustainable Development Goals were already off track, but the crisis is derailing them further. This is where investing in monitoring and evaluation is absolutely key. Sorry. Let me cite a couple of examples. Even before COVID-19, baseline projections suggested that 6% of the global population would still be living in extreme poverty in 2030, missing the SDG target of ending poverty. The fallout of the pandemic threatens to push over 70 million more people into extreme poverty. If we look at hunger, prior to the crisis, the number of unnourished people had dropped to almost 821 million people. COVID-19 has exposed the weaknesses of global food supply chains, and in fragile countries, millions more are waking up hungry every day. If we look at education, UNESCO estimates that about 1.25 billion students are affected by the lockdowns. UNDP estimates that 86% of primary school children in developing countries are not being educated. The pandemic has re-emphasized the digital divide and the right to internet access, particularly for those in the rural areas. In short, the pandemic presents enormous challenges, but paradoxically, it also offers tremendous opportunities, so we mustn't lose sight of them. The crisis has shown us how deeply connected we are to the others and to the planet. COVID-19 is forcing us to revisit our values and challenging us to design a new era of development, one that truly balances economic, social, and environmental progress as envisioned by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So we have moved into a new area with many challenges, but one that requires us to reiterate our commitment to foster a more inclusive and sustainable development pathway. This is clearly a challenge for policymakers, and of course, it is also a challenge for us. Countries are facing diminishing resources of all our economies are suffering. Therefore, we need bold and effective policies to guide development in the right direction. We need to be sure we are investing our limited resources wisely. And to do this, policymakers need evidence from monitoring data and evaluation to tell them as quickly as possible which policies are working, which are not working, which are working for where and for whom. We need a navigation chart. And a navigation chart gives you much more information than just a map. And that's what M&E can provide to policymakers. We need evaluation to show us if and why vulnerable groups are being left behind, if policies are not having the intended effects, or if programs are not reaching those with the greatest needs. We need to understand why and correct course. So monitoring and evaluation are critical to building back better. And for UNDP and its independent evaluation office, we are committed to this global evaluation initiative because we think it's a broad partnership, not just between the World Bank and UNDP, but also engaging other bilateral development partners, other regional banks to strengthen engagement with national governments and other evaluation stakeholders to further support the development of national evaluation capacities. We need monitoring and evaluation to meet immediate challenges and at the same time, look at the future with a brighter hope to try to achieve it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much. You've both stressed and reiterated the urgent need for monitoring and evaluation capacity development. But Alison, let's just get on with the practical aspects of this. How soon will it be active and what services will it provide?
Thanks, Reddy, and that's absolutely the right question to ask. So, as I alluded to earlier, we're fortunate that the partners in the Global Evaluation Initiative all have ongoing capacity development programs that we will be able to leverage. The thing about the GEI, the Global Evaluation Initiative, is that we're not starting from scratch. GEI will draw together and pull together a lot of existing work, ongoing work. So we will be able to get active almost immediately. My colleague Oscar's organization, for instance, hosts a biannual National Evaluation Capacities Conference that brings together government officials engaged in evaluation from around the world and provides an important forum for sharing knowledge and peer-to-peer learning. I'm also pleased to see our partners from the Swedish International Development Agency and the World Food Programme have joined us today. Both organisations bring to the partnership extensive experience in supporting country capacity development. We can also count on our partners, the Centres for Learning on Evaluations and Results, the CLEAR Centres, a global network of regional capacity development providers that already are working with governments in Africa, South Asia, East Asia, and the Pacific and Latin America and the Caribbean to strengthen their monitoring and evaluation systems and capacities. And we're grateful to them once again for hosting this Africa Indaba Evaluation Conference. The African Development Bank has also joined the Global Evaluation Initiative and will continue supporting evaluation capacity development programs in Africa, as well as ENAP that has been running the PFED program in Francophone Africa, CEVAL and the University of Bern, who have been running the IPDET program globally, and many other partners. These are all programs that will form crucial parts of GEI, and they are ongoing. Through its partners, the Global Evaluation Initiative launches with a global presence already, a deep reserve of monitoring and evaluation knowledge and extensive experience in training and capacity development. This will allow the partnership to ramp up quickly, and one of the first activities will be to work with AFREA to develop a database of African evaluators. The partnership will offer a range of supports and collaboration opportunities aimed at promoting a culture of evaluation and strengthening the systems that support the planning, the doing, and the management of evaluation for learning and accountability. This will include countrywide diagnostics and needs assessments to determine the state of monitoring and evaluation, as well as targeted, locally relevant advice on developing national policies and processes. GEI will complement the development of frameworks with training and peer-to-peer support of government and non-governmental stakeholders. Through learning opportunities offered by our partner training institutions, the initiative aims to expand and deepen monitoring and evaluation skills in developing countries and train the next generation of evaluation professionals. And by systematically capturing and generating and curating knowledge through the country work, the initiative will contribute to building local, regional, and global monitoring and evaluation knowledge base. And this will, we hope, form the basis for wide mutual learning around how best to address the monitoring and evaluation gap. This will include developing toolkits, manuals, learning notes in various languages on best practices of monitoring and evaluation development, leveraging lessons learned at local, regional, and global levels. Local and cultural contexts will be very important factors we will focus on as we generate and share knowledge. And we'll also focus on global themes such as climate change and gender, where there are significant M&E gaps. This knowledge will be shared through the Global Evaluation Initiative's online knowledge database, which we hope to have up and accessible very soon. And we're delighted that we're able to collaborate with Better Evaluation on developing that knowledge database. The initiative will also support the convening that promotes the sharing of knowledge, such as the Accra event that I mentioned, and of course, the National Evaluation Capacities Conference that Oscar's organization leads. And finally, with rapidly evolving technology and developing data ecosystems, changing the practice of evaluation, and the growing importance of technological solutions to overcome the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, the initiative will stay up to date on developments and work with partners on using the data revolution to reach excluded countries, populations, and institutions and identify practices relevant to a rapidly changing world. Back to you, Reddy.
Thank you so much, Alison. And you spoke about our next theme with Oscar, that is about taking cognizance of the local reality, of the cultural context of these societies. We know that African communities and societies are not homogeneous. So Oscar, to you then, what will be the focus of the initiative in Africa? And is there a risk of it crowding out local initiatives, many of which, of course, will be discussed here this week at the Indaba Evaluation Conference?
Yes, thank you, Reddy. This is a very relevant question to the audience today. As Alison has spoken, many of the services that GEI will provide are really comprehensive, and we are thrilled to be part of this broad initiative that puts together all these different efforts to try to align them and to make them more coherent. I think it's important to reiterate that GEI is a partnership platform, not a new monolithic program. And the GEI is building on existing initiatives, several of which have very deep roots in Africa. As Alison mentioned, the CLEAR centers, of which several are working in Africa. There are centers for Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, the Center for the Lusophone Africa in Brazil, as well as the CLEAR GIMPA, the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. These centers will be continuing their work with partners to strengthen enabling environments, institutional capacities, and individual capacity development to reinforce monitoring and evaluation practices and increase the use of evidence by policymakers. And CLEAR is already collaborating with UNDP colleagues across the continent. Alison also mentioned the National Evaluation Capacity Conferences. Representatives from Liberia, for example, have been very active participants in the last two conferences, sharing their experiences in developing a national evaluation system in a post-conflict context, and learning from other experiences. Now, building on this, CLEAR UNDP, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, and other stakeholders are collaborating to develop a monitoring and capacity strengthening for a strategy for Liberia. Similarly, in Madagascar, CLEAR Francophone Africa, UNDP, UNICEF, and the Ministry of Finance are collaborating to develop a national evaluation capacity strengthening strategy. CLEAR is also currently working with governments in Lesotho, Tanzania, and Namibia to develop M&E policies that will structure, systematize, and institutionalize the way M&E is practiced in the public sector. CLEAR has also engaged parliamentarians in Benin, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and South Africa to strengthen legislative oversight in their countries and regions. We have just heard from the Vice Minister their engagement with the national voluntary reviews, and parliaments have an important role to play there. This work builds on the M&E capacity of parliaments and lays the foundation to expand evaluation capacity development into other national parliaments in the region, And there we can ask not only how are we achieving and making progress in some of the SDGs, but also why are we not making progress to achieve some of the Sustainable Development Goals. In this line, UNICEF coordinated a session at the last NEC conference, which promoted dialogue between parliamentarians and other stakeholders in the urgency of strengthening national systems, evaluation systems, in the context of the 2030 agenda. With the global evaluation initiatives, we will be able to expand this type of collaboration with more regional and local actors. There will also be opportunities to broaden access by African policymakers and emerging evaluators to training programs such as the International Program for Development Evaluation Training, IPDET, and its Francophone counterpart, the Programme International de Formation and Évaluation du Développement. This latter has trained more than 2,000 people, with over 70% coming from public administrations of Francophone countries in Africa and Haiti. Other training programs include the Program in Rural Monitoring and Evaluation, the PRIME program, and CERAF, Energy, results-oriented M&E training workshops geared to energy sector projects in programs in Francophone Africa. Excuse me. Participating in these programs also provide opportunities for African colleagues to further influence evaluation debates. With respect to your question about crowding out local initiatives, the values at the heart of the GEI include country ownership. GEI is committed to developing country-owned sustainable monitoring and evaluation frameworks and capacities, and doing this in an inclusive manner, establishing partnerships that are inclusive of local actors, including at the subnational level, at city levels. GEI seeks to be culturally responsive, again, working with local partners to provide advice and solutions informed by local context and cultural preferences. We recognize that there are many pockets of monitoring and evaluation expertise already existing in the continent and throughout the world. Our National Evaluation Capacity Conference has been an opportunity to gather all this experience, and we have benefited from examples in Nigeria, in Uganda, South Africa, Benin, where government and M&E systems are working to incorporate the voices of different stakeholder groups in their evaluation systems. Mr. Abdoulaye Gounou, who is with us today in the panel, was one of the participants and shared Benin's experience. Dr. Bagele Chilisa from the University of Botswana provided very important reflections on the revised evaluation criteria and from the perspective of local communities in Africa. And I could go on with many other examples that illustrate that there are indeed many local and national initiatives already at work on the African continent. And we will hear in a few minutes directly from some government representatives who have taken very meaningful steps to strengthen their monitoring and evaluation systems and capacities. So all in all, the GAI seeks to connect these pockets of expertise, to connect local and global experts with this in the need of support and where needed, to fill gaps in meeting the needs of partner countries and institutions. So to close, I would just like to re-emphasize that at the country level, the GEI will always work with local partners, not instead of them. Thank you.
That's really powerful. Many thanks, Alison and Oscar. And I hope you will stay with us to field the questions from the audience at the end of the session. And yes, they are coming in. The comments are coming in. I remind you again, make use of our chat box. Drop your comment there and your question, and we'll accommodate them towards the end. But I'm just going to deviate just a little bit, because both of you have addressed this so emphatically. And we actually had a question about your last point, both of you, from Neil Dillon, who was asking, how will the GEI approach fragile contexts where national capacity is critically low? Will it leverage regional partnerships to build pools of regional monitoring and evaluation capacity to support monitoring and evaluation in these countries? And I think that you've just answered that as you summed it up. Keep your questions going, and we will deal with them towards the end. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what might be the most important factor. It's another poll type of question. We want you to participate and interact with us. Your thoughts on what might be the most important factor for speeding up the development of monitoring and evaluation capacity in Africa. please click on the link and take the poll, right? You should all be experts in how it works by now. And here's what's wonderful about this particular question, because you can click as many answers as you like. We know that a few things can be true at the same time. So it's not just one answer. The question is available in English, in Portuguese, and in French, and I will repeat it. What is the most important factor for speeding up the development of monitoring and evaluation capacity in Africa? So take your answers. There is A, an enabling environment, B, more dedicated resources, C, access to knowledge and training, and D, more global support. So you can perhaps put them in order of preference or whatever you prefer, but the long and short of it is you can give me more than one answer. I'm giving you just a few seconds and we'll be pulling it all together and assessing your responses, and I'll give you feedback. I see many of you are still responding. That's great, that's fantastic, keep it going. And as soon as it stops and it's, the numbers are not changing as much, I will give you the answer. Once again, what is the most important factor for speeding up the development of monitoring and evaluation capacity in Africa? Okay, right. One more minute, maybe, just a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like we've got our answer. Not yet. Not yet, the graph keeps changing. Okay, I think we do have it finally. It looks like the general consensus is that an enabling environment is the key factor. An enabling environment is a key factor, and I feel duty bound to tell you which was a close second, and that was C, which is access to knowledge and training. And these two are connected really. An enabling environment came up as the most critical one, and access to knowledge and training also came close there. So thank you so very much for taking part in our poll. It's very good to get a sense of your priorities and how you are engaging with these very important themes around monitoring and evaluation. So this leads us very nicely to our next panel, which is focused on the current challenges facing monitoring and evaluation in Africa and how these can be overcome. I'm joined by a distinguished panel of speakers. Let me start by welcoming Godfrey Mashamba, Deputy Director General of the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation in South Africa. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you so very much. And we are also going to welcome Mr. Abdoulaye Gono from Benin. We're going to hear from you in just a moment. But let me start with you, Godfrey. You are a Deputy Director General in a very, very crucial office in the life of South Africa. Now, in this current climate, evidence on what is working and what is not is more urgent than ever. But the challenging economic context has meant that everyone has to do with less. How are you coping as a department or as a government even with having to do more with less? And are there regional and global experiences that serve as a guide?
Yes. Thank you very much, Reddy, and the organizers for the opportunity, and greetings to the fellow panel members. It is correct for us to be in constant search for what works, because in the current climate, we do need some positive vibes. It's very difficult. Also, we must know very quickly if something doesn't work, because if we know it quickly that something doesn't work, be it policies, programs, interventions, it helps us to save resources. Because if we don't know that quickly, we might continue spending monies on things that will not help us. But besides knowing, we also need to have a courage to act, a courage to scale up where there is successes, but also a courage to terminate inefficient processes. As well as to course correct where we need to make changes. So this becomes even more important right now, urgent, under the prevailing conditions because of limited resources, the situations of under development and uneven development that you find that there is inequities across society. Our quest also for recovering from the COVID-19 disruptions, and also given the resolve towards achieving South Africa's national development plans, the African Agenda 2063, as well as the SDG. So it is quite important that under the current conditions, we look for evidence. But we need reliable evidence that will guide us on our path to economic recovery. Because what we know is that crisis periods like what we are going through now present certain challenges. There are disruptions in the production of certain data, but also we see opportunities for innovation in the area of M&E, that we need to find new ways of collecting data. For example, modern techniques for predictive modeling, big data, risk analysis have now become popular because of the very nature of disruptions of COVID to the systems of data collection. Now, to contextualize the problems or the challenges in Africa, citizens want government that are effective and efficient. So monitoring and evaluation is an important source of evidence required to inform decisions on what policies and programs to introduce or change, how available budgets should be allocated and redirected, and as well as what to collaborate on and with whom. So the sooner the evidence is available, which is very crucial, it's crucial to help governments to be more responsive, also to be more efficient. MNEs must promote transparency so that citizens can know what happens once policy decisions have been taken, whether specific programs or projects are appropriately designed to achieve the specific policies, and whether those programs are implemented as per design, whether they are having the desired effect, how responsive they are to different groups of the society. I think I'll touch on that as one of the critical area of challenge that we picked up in South Africa. In doing that, we also, I want to share with you lessons that South Africa learned from the evaluation of the national evaluation system as my contribution to the discussion on the topics here. I've got 5 points that I will touch on. The issue around how do we do more with less? We need to reprioritize given the budget cuts. There has been budget cuts across the system. So we need to have a system of improving the process of identifying and prioritizing what to evaluate. We need to modernize our systems, to digitize in order for us to be more efficient in collection of data and use of data and sharing data across the system. Certain things may need to be deferred. So there needs to be decisions and criteria on how to prioritize across different needs for evaluation. We also need to encourage the use of existing resources for undertaking evaluations. Then the second issue is the one of data gaps. That in South Africa, we are experimenting with this, that we see a great opportunity for us to improve administrative records. That is, for example, already you will be familiar when you visit a clinic, rural clinic, they still use paper cards. So if you digitize that information, it becomes easy and seamless for us to, as government, to know what are actually going on. To digitize the records, to integrate the data systems across government, also to sharpen what is called the performance indicators of specific programs, critical programs of government, so that it is easy for performance information to be drawn and used for purposes of M&E. So the third area is the one on the responsiveness to gender, youth, people with disabilities, as well as the marginalized, that we need to devise performance indicators and evaluation approaches, as well as evaluation questions that enable better understanding of how policies and programs promote the needs of various groups in the society. That is an important lesson in South Africa, given our history. The fourth area is the one on the improving the utility, the usage and value of evaluation results. An earlier speaker I spoke about this was a big issue in the conference in Ghana last year, that in South Africa, there's ways in which we are trying to improve on this. We want to make sure that the subject of monitoring and evaluation, it is of interest to more than one party, that the executive, parliament, and various users, for example, relevant stakeholders in the civil society, sometimes need to be given an opportunity to engage in the process of identifying and prioritizing evaluation topics. The fifth, and which is the last area, is evaluations. They were taking long to be finalized. And if an evaluation takes long to be finalized, it impacts on the timeliness and the value of the evidence. Evidence reach decision makers once they've made the decision. So it becomes of less value. So we need to use more better systems to do that. An approach of rapid synthesis and rapid evaluations is being tested in South Africa. We are going to be doing this and learning more about it. And we hope that this network facilitated by this forum is going to help us to improve in that regard. Now, in conclusion, I will touch on 2 points around how South Africa has learned to share knowledge in this regard over the years in the implementation of our own national evaluation policy framework, as well as the exchanges with regional bodies and knowledge hubs within the country on evaluation. We've learned quite a lot. Our interaction with the bodies such as CLEAR, the UNICEF, DFID, the World Bank, and the Tweedembele in Africa, in the rest of the continent, is very, very useful. And then this forum today, because there is growing demand for capacity for M&E in the continent, we see this forum as a useful platform to enable networking and also peer learning by creating an environment where us as policymakers, evaluations practitioners, the civil society, researchers, and also international organizations can actually work together and exchange information. And we are looking forward, ready to interact and associate ourselves with this initiative from South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mashamba. There's a lot that came out there, and I think the commitment to be responsive to society, that is a huge benefit. And also in your introductory remarks, you used the word courage. And I think that is so pivotal as we launch this initiative, that the courage to adapt, the courage to scale up, the courage to change, all of that will take us somewhere. So thank you very much for your comments there. Let me now welcome Abdoulaye Guno of Benin, who is the head of the Office for the Evaluation of Public Policies and Analysis of Government Action of Benin. Mr. Guno, Benin has embarked on an ambitious program of developing a national evaluation policy and building a new institution to manage evaluation. So how has the pandemic affected these efforts? And related to that, what kind of regional and global support have you relied on for the design and implementation of these initiatives?
Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to participate to that panel. And before answering the question, I would like to open by explaining the national evaluation of Benin. This is a system that we have started since 2008, and in terms of progress and in terms of the progress that we've made since we've started this, since we've launched this initiative, we have been able to build a very robust evaluation national system that stands on a national policy of evaluation that also rests on a national council for evaluation that gives us our direction, and that also acts as an advisory group to the government regarding evaluation. So we've been able to set up an institutional framework that accompanies all the different actions of evaluation at the national level. To operationalize all of that, we've had to use different tools to implement this policy. And with the SDGs, we've also set up a institutional framework for the SDG as we progress in their implementation. So globally, this is what our system looks like. To go back to the question that you just asked me regarding the impact of the pandemic on our institutionalization efforts and to promote the evaluation culture in Benin, what I can say is that, like in most countries in the world, and in particular in Africa, the pandemic has had a great impact, not a disastrous impact, I won't say that, but a very negative impact on our office. First, because the impact has led us to cancel the a forum for evaluation, which is a very large forum that gathers between 400 to 500 experts from around the world, for during which we discuss of the new trends, the new results regarding on the scientific world, and we have not been able to do this because of pandemic. So that was really bad. The second point, in terms of impact of the pandemic regarding the activities of the office, as well as the efforts of the Benin government to promote the evaluation culture, is the drastic reduction of all of our activities. That means all of the things that we do on the ground, all of the things that we do inside the office, all of this was reduced. The pandemic also had another impact. It was the change and of the way we conduct our traditional evaluation. So because of pandemic, we've had to adapt, and the way that we actually were doing the evaluation on the ground before the pandemic, with the with creating different groups in different interview and different research group on the ground, all of that had to be modified. So we are now in a new paradigm that we've had to set up. We have new tools so that we can do all these activities. That being said, we've continued to work, and what I can say is that we've been on the ground while respecting very strictly the government directives, which means that we couldn't have more than 50 people in one particular area for an evaluation. So every time that we have gone through an evaluation mission to strengthen capacity, every time we've been able to inform people or to distribute the tools or new information regarding the evaluation for our institutional framework, we do that as long as we do not go over gathering 50 people. So what are the regional and international support that we've used in order for us to adapt to this new paradigm? I can cite three that have been very, very important for us. First, it's a partnership that we've had with KIR, French-speaking Africa, that actually has supported us with the involvement of local evaluation through a webinar, and that was able to actually give more visibility to the office, to show what the office was able to do even during the pandemic. We've also participated to, or we've also been involved to another program, to Mbele, which is a program that Benin has done with a partnership with Kenya, Niger, Ghana, Uganda, and South Africa. We've participated in an activity to allow us to adapt to this new environment through what we call rapid evaluation or quick evaluation, and it helps us to actually come out of the classical or traditional type of evaluation that we've done, because it is no longer we're no longer able to take time on the ground to conduct interviews or to conduct evaluations. So the pandemic has forced us to develop a new methodology that we call the quick evaluation methodology, that reduces contact quite a bit and reduces the amount of time devoted for that, and that still can give us some very interesting data to allow us to make decisions. We've also participated through a partnership with EvalDGs to webinars with the Association of the Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, and to see how this particular function is evolving, in particular in West Africa, Benin being one of the champions of this particular point. So for us, the GEI is a new opportunity that allows us to make progress on these different aspects, to develop the evaluation function in the government, and to promote a culture for evaluation in order to support decision makers, political decision makers, by giving proofs supporting their decision. So we think that this GEI is an opportunity because this initiative can help us to strengthen all of the different framework that we have here by setting up an information integrated system to capitalize on the knowledge that we've already acquired, and that will allow us to improve our national system, our statistical system, which is not very well disaggregated, and that will give us the opportunity to work on the SDGs. So we have global statistics, we have statistics that are not very specific, and we need to be able to disaggregate and to have this type of detail for each of the SDGs so we can measure the progress made to accomplish them. We believe that this new initiative can actually help this new national initiative in Benin. It can help us to integrate the SDGs, not only in the government program, but also in our evaluation system, so that we can actually, so we're able to send information to evaluate them. We also think that we're never going to stop to learn to be able to strengthen our system, and this partnership can be a very good source to support us so that evaluation can be totally mainstream in our national academies. Right now, the office has developed some curricula to mainstream the evaluation in the professional training center. We have 3 certificates that are issued regarding evaluation, a master 2, and we believe that the global initiative will be an opportunity for us to improve this type of aspect that we've undertaken and to train professional evaluators and reach critical mass that will allow us to support our progress toward a culture of evaluation at the national level so that we can continue to produce proofs that will support political decisions as well as the decisions of the government. So this is how we're organized at the national level so that we can face the pandemic. And regarding the evaluation, to conclude, 2 words. First, we believe that the partnership on evaluation is a very powerful tool for institutionalizing and promoting evaluation in our countries. We've understood it very clearly, and this is the reason why we have joined this partnership with South Africa, Uganda at the very beginning, before countries like Kenya, Niger, and Ghana would actually rejoin us. Our ambition is for this partnership to become a continental partnership so that as we go, the African countries that are interested into institutionalizing evaluation would actually come and join us because we are actually learning through our peers, we're exchanging experiences, and we're progressing, all of us. So, and that's actually, we are coming together, we are progressing together. The second point is that we need this partnership in education to strengthen the capacities at the national level so that the provisions would actually be of high quality and would be supporting at the relevant time all of the political policies. And this is what I wanted to say to answer your questions. And I'm very happy to be here. And I'm also very happy to answer any of the questions that will be given to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Really, really appreciate your contribution, Mr. Gunnar. And I think what also stands out towards the end is a powerful message of unity. We said earlier that African societies are not homogeneous, but it does not negate the need for unity, learning from each other, sharing experiences, and you highlighted quite significantly why the GEI is a platform for knowledge and information sharing. Thank you so very much. We also have with us Rossetti Nabumba, who is the Deputy Head and Technical Monitoring Officer of the Budget Monitoring and Accountability Unit of the Government of Uganda. Welcome to you, Madam Deputy Head. Uganda has very mature monitoring and evaluation systems. So what will it take to scale them up, move them to the next level, and how are you managing to address the current crisis while obviously keeping an eye on the long-term goals? Madame Nabumba? Okay, let's try again. I think the sound. Thank you so very much.
Confirm that you can hear me very well.
Absolutely hear you. I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yes, it's a pleasure to be at this meeting, and I greet all my friends on the call. Uganda indeed has a very well-developed M&E system. We are not short of quality data, and the data systems are working very well. What we should focus on really is exactly how is this data being used. I think we have this disease called too much data and too much evidence, and you are not sure exactly which piece of evidence is more important than the other, and some of this evidence is not scalable. You are not able to use it in a manner that will help you achieve the outcomes you want to achieve. But we do have the government evaluation facility, which helps us in evaluation under the Office of the Prime Minister. The SDG Secretariat is now open and tracks the SDGs. The Uganda Evaluation Association is playing a very critical role in building the evaluation culture. The Ministry of Finance is supporting the M&E system development, and sectors are also producing routine data every now and again. But then as we move forward, we need to think about how we sustain these efforts and sustain the interest of the stakeholders in M&E. At a time when there is COVID-19, there is a possibility now, when you look at the budget cuts, that M&E staff may actually be categorized among the non-essential budget items. And if they are non-essential, even when you have a good system, they don't have the money to actually use the system well to generate the evidence in time and make sure everybody can make a decision in time. We also are looking at the issue as we move forward that the government of Uganda is changing from working with silos, sectors, and is throwing away the sector approach and is moving into programmatic approaches to planning and budgeting. And this has a lot of implication for how we structure our result system. Now, this is the time when we move forward and the monitoring and evaluation system must be re-engineered to take care of the fact, new ideas of what a result looks like. So in the program approach, there is more questions about what exactly is the result now. When we say performance, what is the result? And who is responsible for which actions that such that these are funded to attain the needed result? The type of data that we require for assessing and evaluating performance in a programmatic approach is different. And now this will change the way we do M&E. And with COVID-19, we have this burden which has led to budget cuts, as my friends have said. And in the process, you find some SDGs will be of higher importance than the others. And therefore, even in the data collection system, you'll find a lot of interest for evidence on health, education, water, and the like, and less interest on infrastructure, energy, and all those things. So as we move forward, we need to think about where is the priority now as we develop the M&E system further. For instance, most development actions are outside the government. The government plays a facilitative role, but then you find almost 60% of funding for government programs comes out of the private sector. Have we paid attention to develop the M&E system in the private sector and connect them to the public sector? So when we are talking about evaluation capacity development, we need to stretch a little bit beyond public sector and the evaluators to start thinking about the off-budget initiatives, the private sector, and all those other players in the system. Now, as you look at the current wave of M&E, and within the context of the COVID-19, we know that many African countries are at the stage of changing governments. This also has an implication on what exactly is going to happen to our M&E systems, because politicians are very interested in how change can occur very fast. They are not so much into the long term. So for us who are interested in the long term, how do we keep the interest and the ball rolling to achieve long-term aspirations vis-a-vis the short-term aspirations of the politicians? Therefore, this means when we are building capacity, we must build capacity of the politicians in M&E so that they understand that we need both the short and long-term aspects of development. So countries like Uganda welcome the GEI because there's a lot we can do together. There is a way we can contribute to the global economy. For instance, if Uganda is so advanced in its M&E system, we can do peer-to-peer learning. We can support capacity building and be part of the people who can offer capacity to others as we also build capacity in our own countries. We need to demonstrate how do you actually use champions in a system of M&E to advocate for evidence use, because now we are at that stage where you have so much information, but then how do you pick out which information, how do you package it, and such that it becomes useful for everybody else? So as I conclude, yes, I agree, we have a long way to go, but we should also not lose hope. It has actually affected aspect of society. Some systems continue. For instance, a government like Uganda is continuing in education and water, human rights, and therefore whatever M&E system was there, we are just continuing to upgrade it. The evidence is needed in time and all that. So I thank you very much, and I wait for any comments. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Madam Deputy Head Nabumba. And I think that your feedback and critique of governments was quite robust, true and constructive, in that we need to look beyond the political goals and the political moment and sharpen our gaze towards the future and long term. And also appreciate your message towards the end that yes, the problems and the challenges are overwhelming, but we mustn't lose hope, and we soldier on, as it were. And the launch of the Global Evaluation Initiative is another step towards that future that we all want to build. Thank you so very much. Let me now welcome Gilson Pina, National Director of Planning in the Ministry of Finance in Cape Verde. Mr. Director, The question to you, what are some of the challenges a small island state such as Cabo Verde faces in developing its monitoring and evaluation capacities? And of course, how might a partnership such as the Global Evaluation Initiative help you to meet those challenges?
Muito bom dia.
Good morning.
Peço desculpas. Muito bom dia.
My apologies. Good morning. Yeah, you can hear me.
Sim. Muito bom dia. Muito obrigado pelo
So, good morning and thank you very much for the invitation and congratulations to all my fellow panelists who have given you an overview of evaluation, monitoring and evaluation in the African region. Here in Cabo Verde, we need to provide you with some context. Our monitoring and evaluation system began in 2011, and in 2014, we were able to deepen our system with the approval of related laws. So, particularly since 2014, Cabo Verde has implemented some restrictions to further improve our monitoring evaluation system. We have graduated from less advanced to a middle income country, which has decreased our access to external resources for public investment. So that caused our country to have some capacity to evaluate and select investment projects for our country that may be used to maximize return for the economy and society. And with the possibility to select investments, we are forced also to have greater control and greater monitoring of these investments that are selected. Therefore, our monitoring capacity, though limited, has been put to the test so that we could best monitor these investments. So in 2011, we began with our monitoring evaluation system in Cabo Verde, and the system is configured through the National Planning Organization. This service on a macro level was responsible for the monitoring Cabo Verde, but all other sectors also are able to perform planning and monitoring. So we have these two flows, sector by sector, to conduct evaluation. This shows us that here in Cabo Verde, the process has been designed and implemented. The question is, how is it, and what are the challenges that we face going forward? The culture of evaluation is implemented in Cabo Verde. We have this notion, our strategic plan for sustainable development, which is a 5-year plan, meaning that every 5 years we have to review the plan and evaluate for the next plan. The current plan has been in force since 2017 and will be in effect until 2021. We were able to work a little differently. So at the end of the period of the plan, we will have a continuous evaluation so that by the time we reach the completion of the plan, we can have an evaluation of the execution of the project and investments that were made under the strategic development plan. in the period from 2017 through 2021. So I stress that the evaluation process in Cape Verde began in a period when the culture of evaluation was weak. We were forced to execute evaluation system because we had to provide a report to some international partner, or we were making some requests for resources from some partners. So that led us to perform evaluation, not as a system that we wanted, but almost as a system that was imposed on us. Therefore, that shows that the evaluation system in Cape Verde and many African countries have involvement of donors, and not necessarily because we had to monitor the execution of our plans and to know what we were doing and what we wanted to do. This shows that there was a certain imperative from the donors and the information that we had to provide. So what I mean to say is that that was the initial point, but the culture in Cape Verde has changed. Our legal framework, particularly since 2014, although it still needs some strengthening, but the legal framework does provide us with a strong monitoring and evaluation system in Cape Verde. In addition to our strategic plan, we have a body of international commitments that have not been imposed, but they are commitments that have been taken on by our country, including the implementation of SDGs, climate commitments, and we are, in fact, in preparation for another plan that will start in 2021. So that shows that we now have the concept, we have embraced the concept of monitoring evaluation. For Cape Verde, the environment is favorable. We have all the conditions to go forward. And I would mention the challenges. For Cape Verde, we are a small economy consisting of 10 small islands. So our country, as mentioned here, that this is not a challenge for their economy, but here in Cape Verde, fragmentation of information is indeed a challenge. As the other speaker said, this is a challenge for Cape Verde. And frequently, a specialized system to promote the collection of data, and in fact, the distribution of data, are major challenges here in Cape Verde, particularly when we talk about timeliness and use of the information from the regarding public policies. In addition, we also have needs in integration of information. We have many sources of data, but not yet the capacity, very well installed capacity to process and take advantage of this information and to include them in our monitoring and evaluation system. Another aspect that is very important in Cape Verde is the use of administrative data. In the project, in the context of the project with the World Bank, we are trying to improve the use of statistical and administrative data. We have a lot of information available for use, but we are unable to maximize the use of this data, including indicators and in the context of the objectives that we have set for ourselves. So frequently, and that's another challenge, the connection between administrative data and the information we have with the definition of indicators. And with this initiative on a regional level, in the Africa region, we don't have to be concerned how to define indicators, because we will have an international manual for indicators, and we are able to adapt those indicators to the context of our own monitoring and evaluation environment. So these are the major challenges that Cape Verde faces. We have a favorable environment, and I would conclude by mentioning what we are doing with respect to these challenges. At this time, we have developed, or we are developing, and we are doing the final touches to the platform of evaluation and monitoring. This platform has been designed to be used here at the planning directorate. So it's a more of a macro level in terms of indicators. We need to scale that up to other sectors to monitor their own activities. So we have our platform. It is almost completed. There was some delay in its implementation. It should have been completed already this year, but we will only be able to complete it by the end of this year or early next year at the latest. We have received great support from Clear Brazil in order to improve the monitoring evaluation segment in Cape Verde. So what about the challenges? There is institutional capacity, and we recognize that it is not weak and that we need more training. So this initiative came at a good time. It will help us achieve our own objectives, our desire to improve the monitoring system in Cape Verde. Particularly, this initiative help us use the data that we already have in Cape Verde, but we need to know how to use the data and information in our evaluation of national policies. So the initiative's goals coincide with our own goals. As I mentioned, we have a platform being completed. This will help us use the platform and to be at the level of the African region and to have a monitoring evaluation center on an international level to improve the execution of our policies and of the strategic plan that will end in 2021. I am almost finished, but we are reconfiguring our catalog of products so that we may adapt it to the execution of the strategic plan, which is nearing completion. And we need to prepare for the new plan so that we can meet international standards. This initiative will support Cape Verde and help us in facing our challenges. So for Cape Verde, as the National Director of Planning, I'd like to thank you for this initiative, and I hope that we can take full advantage of this initiative. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations on this initiative, on this activity, and this conference, this webinar. This is one step going forward. Thank you very much.
For the very sobering analysis that you gave, and the whole open-mindedness to receive interventions, the transparency, I thought, of your presentation was very impressive as well. Wishing you the best as you collaborate and work together to build Cape Verde. Thank you so much. I want to thank all our distinguished panel of government evaluators, all of you, for your contributions, your insights, and sharing your experiences. And let me just remind you that we are running out of time. There's so much to say, there's so much content, and I want to accommodate all those fabulous questions that we're getting from our audience members. And it's always the last panel that suffers the most, because I'm going to cut your time just a tad bit. So I'm going to ask you to please be succinct and as brief as you can, without obviously compromising the weight of your message. So just speak a little shorter so that we can cover everything. Thank you so much. So for a different perspective, I'm now joined by Fazila Hussein, who is co-chair of the Young and Emerging Evaluators Network of the African Evaluation Association, or AFRIA. Welcome to you, Fazila. It's a pleasure to have you. So let's talk about this. What role can young and emerging evaluators play in helping expand monitoring and evaluation capacities?
Thank you so much, Reddy. Yes, exactly. That is a very big question, and a very important one at this important time, I believe, because, and I would like to say, as a young and emerging evaluator that has grown into a mid-level evaluator, that yes, young and emerging evaluators have been contributing to expanding M&E capacities internationally as well as in Africa through the Eval Youth networks that have been created, especially regional networks and internationally, these have been shaping the content of monitoring and evaluation themes through developing a mentorship program internationally, and this has been taken to a regional level, as well as the international EE conference, Eval Youth conference that has been happening, and as well as putting or making YEEs aware and encouraging them to become more involved in voluntary organization for professional evaluation, so then they can contribute and make decisions. But also what I feel is YEEs are, or young and emerging evaluators, are the next generation of evaluators. So I feel as an independent evaluator that YEEs are the ground or fertile soil to embed the seeds of what we have been talking about in this African evaluation in Daba on African approaches to evaluation. So Alison mentioned building the tools for quality monitoring and evaluation, and I feel young and emerging evaluators have a space to collaborate and discuss with other stakeholders like higher education institutions, government departments, civil society, NGOs, on developing competencies for evaluators, on developing evaluation guidelines, which I know AFRIA and CLEAR are working on currently. So I feel they have a contribution to make, and young evaluators and emerging evaluators can definitely contribute to the knowledge on building local African evaluation approaches. So I think it's an opportune time, and I want to keep my message brief, and that is the key points that I would like to share in my time with you all. Thank you, Reddy.
Thank you so much, Fazila. And of course, it's always said, not without evidence, that Africa's youthful population is its strongest asset, and it's good to see young emerging leaders taking up that space. Thank you so much, Fazila. So our final panel is focused on regional and global organizations who play an important role in the transfer of monitoring and evaluation knowledge and the supply of resources and technical skills. Let me welcome Penila Rafiki, who is a Senior Program Manager for Capacity Development at the Swedish International Development Agency, that's SIDA. So Penila, very briefly, how does SIDA approach its support for monitoring and evaluation capacity development, and what are your expectations from GEI?
Well, thank you very much. First, let me just thank the organizers for inviting us to be part of this panel, and all the other panelists previous for very fruitful contributions. So there are basically three fundamental ways that a bilateral donor like SIDA can approach ECD, if I may call it that, evaluation capacity development. First is through the evaluations that we commission by asking that local consultants are included as full members of the evaluation team. Other is through projects and programs that we fund by including a component on strengthening a local capacity, M&E capacities. And the third is through direct support of ECD capacities. And SIDA actually works with all these three and has done so in different ways over the last decade. It should, this first avenue is available to all evaluation functions at donor agencies, but the latter two may not be, depending on the mandate and the regulations that govern them. So in particular, providing direct support to ECD as GEI would be an example of, this requires additional and different kind of work for most evaluation functions. So I'd just like to bring forth, without speaking on behalf of any of my fellow donor partners in GEI, I just want to bring forth that this is a group of highly engaged individuals and organizations that have walked that extra distance to become a part of this initiative. When it comes to fundamental premises for ECD work, we rely on similar arguments that have been raised today, seeing evaluation capacity as a key part of democratic governance, where EC focuses on policy implementation and improvement, providing tools and opportunities for learning and accountability is critical to evidence-informed decision-making. But it's often been overlooked in development programming or assumed to already be in place. And we're not fully so. Donors have historically responded by using evaluators from their own contexts or advocated for setups that may not have strong local ownership, as indicated just previously. And this can become problematic when it's combined with the fact that donor-funded programs still constitute a sizable part of the demand for evaluation in many recipient countries. So stronger democratic governance entails, as we see it, a shift in the structure of demand for evaluation from donor-driven demand for own programs to country-led demand for own policy implementation. And this then coupled with increased local supply of resources and competences to do M&E, and particularly in contexts when service provision is done by private sector and civil society, this might be quite a challenge. But it is very encouraging that this shift is now taking place in Africa and that the evaluation culture are becoming stronger, as we've also heard previously today. The second premise is that evaluation capacity is key to the follow-up Agenda 2030. Country-led follow-up based on country systems is actually a fundamental principle of the agenda. The agenda even states that this requires capacity development in a number of places, particularly in low-income countries in Africa. Evaluation, however, is not blessed with an indicator within SDG 17, while statistics is. Thus, the E in the M&E has risked becoming forgotten when resources and structures have been put in place, and the potential for learning and adaptivity, which is embedded in modern evaluation work, is maybe overlooked. So the gap between availability of data and interpretation or use that was previously mentioned serves as examples of this. So for us, taken together, we see ECD as a well-justified field to support, and also GEI as a global partnership that is both timely and well conceptualized. And our expectations of GEI are very high, actually. We expect GEI to take the ECG agenda forward. We expect continued good work by existing partners, new partnerships to form, new methods development, and all of this together can affect systemic change. We expect GEI to be an efficient funding mechanism that is managed effectively and produce high quality reporting. With such a large number of M&E experts, we cannot expect less than that. We are also very excited about the global approach of GEI and expect this to be delivered in practice. Because, as was also mentioned earlier, it is in countries and regions where GEI may either contribute towards evaluation as a known, sought after, trusted and used tool for policy implementation and decision making, or where it will be perceived as a donor-driven World Bank UNDP project that upholds parallel systems of accountability, and that not only solidifies the position of those who are already engaged in the field, but risks crowding out small initiatives and new actors. And just to reiterate the points by Mr. Garcia for UNDP in the beginning, the national and regional dimensions are very important to this global initiative, and it is where GI will in effect be played out. And it is also where the test of its success will be, if I may say so. So ultimately, we expect GEI to contribute towards better lives for poor and vulnerable people, and we look very much forward to working together to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And I think everyone agrees you did not mince your words, Pernilla, when talking about the high standards that you have set. But it's not just for the fun of it. As you rightly say, lives are at stake. Our sustainability and future are at stake. This has to work and we have to get it right. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'm now pleased to welcome back Rossetti, but this time in your role as President of the Board of Directors for AFRIA. And my question to you then is, how does a continental organization sustain its national partnerships, and what lessons and requests might you have for the Global Evaluation Initiative?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to come back on the platform. I would say, as a thought leader in Africa and also umbrella body for associations in Africa, it's some job. It requires some work to actually sustain partnerships at a continental level. But the value proposition of AFRIA has helped us to keep a good network of friends across the world who are working with us to sustain these partnerships. Our associations are member-based and they rely on small subscriptions and whatever comes their way through engagements with AFRIA itself and other entities like Clear AA, Twendembere, IVA Partners, and the others. We are very, very thankful for those partnerships. Recently, we have a program with the United States Department of State, which gave us a grant, and we're working in Tanzania and Cameroon, and this helps us sustain the partnership on that front. UNICEF is a very dear friend in supporting us prepare for the AFRIA conference, which should happen in the coming year. And already we are also talking with yourselves at the GI to see if we can also have a partnership which brings in the associations to start preparing the conference, which is due next year. We thank SAMIA, organizations like SAMIA in South Africa, which have taken up the role of producing a journal using the African Evaluation Journal, but putting there the things they want to see. And UpNode is another partner. And so what I'm saying is that sustaining relationships and partnerships requires us to work together and collaborate across the continent, but even globally in terms of working together. Clear AA is a very good partner in terms of developing a curriculum of M&E, and we are working on that in Mackay University in Uganda. We are working on another research project with them to look at the challenges associations are facing and such that we can have a program. And these programs will require support to enhance the capacity of the associations. If you ask me about my ask and requests to the GEI, of course, I'm looking forward to a very, very collaborative and nice arrangement where we can work together, one, on preparing the AFRIA Conference 2021. We had set it for March, but March is like next door. We are discussing to see what is the most appropriate date. given the COVID-19 kind of also threw us off the road, we are working around to find another suitable date. There is also the aspect of a roster of African evaluators, which GEI has kind of started talking with us. This will be good because it would help us know who is where and what do they have and what can they do. Who needs internship in Africa, who needs training, who needs networking. And that will be very good to move forward. Of course, evaluation capacity development is very critical, but the private sector, the evaluators would like GEI to help us strengthen the role of the AFREA itself to play its coordination and support role. We have ideas, but the capacity to get around and follow up the programs, because it's one thing to start programs, but following them to see, are they working? Who is working? We need that capacity. And lastly, we are toying with the issue of introducing the African Evaluation Award. We should start giving incentives for our members to work towards producing good products and recognized. And maybe in future, they have credentials. So we have to work around that. The African Evaluation Journal is looking published. For instance, we almost don't have much publishing in French. The Francophone articles are very low, but in general, our journal is also short of.
Okay, Rossetti, I don't know if you can hear us. Your screen has frozen.
Leave it at.
Okay, I think you were concluding anyway. Thank you so very much, Rossetti, for that impassioned conversation that you've started. Okay, we are running out of time, so that means that the time left to make your comments is very brief. And with the questions from the audience, again, I'm going to ask you to keep your answers very, very brief. We're not going to be able to get through all of them. But let me now welcome Sarah Longford, who is the Deputy Director of the Department of Evaluation at the World Food Programme. So Sarah, how important are local evaluators for evaluating the global work of the World Food Programme, and does the World Food Programme currently invest in developing these local capacities? How can GEI help in that regard?
Thank you very much, and like others, very honoured to join this important Indaba and the launch of GEI Africa. So let me build on some of the remarks of other panelists, but offer some concrete examples that demonstrate what WFP has done in terms of and showed its commitment to investing in and developing national capacities. But a reflection just before, a reflection on the past, because 5 years ago, WFP approved a new evaluation policy that was notable at the time for introducing demand-led decentralized evaluations. And at that time, I was based in Johannesburg in our regional bureau. And I remember thinking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to implement this policy? And while we had an M&E regional advisor, there was no full-time evaluation expert in the bureau. We relied on our headquarters in Rome, which is where I'm now sitting. But thanks to the policy commitment to support our offices when commissioning decentralized evaluations, today, we have 13 staff in total working full-time to support our country offices deliver on this evaluation function in sub-Saharan Africa alone. And we're proud of this progress, and we're proud of the geographic diversity. And the policy, the leadership, the technical and oversight support from HQ, the financial investment, a lot of people are referring to this, and a deliberate focus on capacity development were all vital ingredients to make that happen. And I think, but perhaps key was a phased approach and the vision to bringing all those elements together. So let me share a few examples of how WFP has been contributing to strengthening capacities of national evaluators, and in particular, young emerging evaluators, like the speaker just before. So first, when we establish long-term agreements with evaluation firms, we take a close look at their network of evaluators and their presence at country and regional level. Then, when we're selecting the evaluation teams for specific evaluations, we expect to see local outputs among the team members. And one statistic to give you, of all the evaluators for these decentralized evaluations that we've engaged in Southern Africa region over the last 3 years, 35% were from the countries where we conducted the evaluations, and a further 19 from other African countries. And we're working hard on promoting better geographic diversity in the global evaluations. In South Africa, our regional office is partnering with SAMER, like many others, on a number of activities, promoting inputs to development of a competencies framework for evaluators, capacity development through M&E workshops, South-South learning. Again, we've been hearing a lot about the peer learning, and a community of practice. But going beyond, our offices have also been adapting a range of strategies to actually maximize evaluation utility and use. Just a couple of examples, because I know you'd like me to be short. Benin's, Eswatini, Namibia, our offices have been jointly commissioned evaluations with government counterparts, and we've been learning by doing together, which has further strengthened the partnership, particularly in our national school feeding programs. And the government participation in these joint evaluations, attending evaluation learning programs, has all been very important. So but I think one of the ones that, again, we're continuing to work on is the follow through in implementing these recommendations and the support needed to do that. And an example is in Lesotho, where we supported development of an M&E framework for the school feeding following a collaborative evaluation. So I could give more examples, but in sum, I think these efforts and investments have increased national stakeholders' exposure to evaluation, better understanding, better use, and our support cannot be opportunistic and temporary. It's got to be planned and permanent. So I end with a call for all of us to collectively adopt a systemic and country-led approach to national NECD. And this is where we really see the added value of GEI and this platform that brings us together and pulls the resources. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Sarah. Thank you. And we have been collecting your questions. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We're not going to be able to get through all of them, but we're going to do our best to just ask these questions. And the speakers, the panelists, please just keep your answers short. I will begin with this question from Marie in Madagascar. She asks about building M&E capacities in civil society in Africa. And she says, today we've spoken a lot about the role of M&E in government, but what about civil society? Where does civil society fit in? And the question can go to anyone. And Sarah, I'll pick on you because you talked about training evaluators, and you also talked about respecting local conditions and bringing those partnerships on board. Do you want to comment on that?
Thank you. No, indeed. These events, these conferences are extremely important for the networking and the sharing of what expertise everybody can bring to the table. And for WFP, we work with a huge host of civil organizations in implementing our programs, but the partnerships for the M and the E piece still need to continue to be refined, and this is where we need to build on each other's skills, language, culture, issues, and the rest. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Okay, and we have a question from Mundoreva Muchanga from Mozambique, and this question is directed at South Africa. Godfrey, get yourself ready. Here's a question. What are the main challenges and lessons that were learned in South Africa during South Africa's experience in creating national M&E forum, mainly in the establishment of the organization? So I remember that time very, very well. It's not that long ago. What are the challenges and lessons learned that you can share?
Yes, I think depending on what forum that the question is referring to, I only joined the department very recently. I see Dogan is online. Maybe he can share some of the experiences. I unfortunately I don't know the forum. The question is
okay. I think he's talking about the department itself, the Department of Monitoring, Planning and Evaluation. And
yes.
Yes, so maybe I can help just a little bit because I was a journalist or am a journalist at that time that it was established in 2009. Muchanga, just very quickly, I think one of the challenges that I remember covering at that time was to get buy-in from all sectors of society. There was some criticism that the government at the time had gotten together and come up with these kind of goals and ambitions and development plans, but the rest of civil society had not been taken on board. That was one. And the second one was that in areas where we needed to monitor and evaluate, we lacked the skills. We lacked the skills to do so. So the skills development was a major part of that. There were a lot of academics who also contributed to the process, and the fear was that it was leaving ordinary people behind. That's what I can remember from that period. But
Yes.
Godfrey, if there's something I left out, I'm sure you can put it on the chat box.
Thanks.
And I will
Thanks.
repeat
I think
it.
that's the great response. In addition to that, one can talk about the culture of evaluation that has actually grown in the country, as well as the capacity that has been built for undertaking evaluation, both at the center, at the Department of DPME, and also in the offices of the province, offices of the premiers in the provinces. That is a great advance that has been made in this regard. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so very much. And one question I'll take, Alio from Niger says, how will GEI help African governments to establish evaluation at the level of planning systems, given the role evaluation has in providing lessons to be learned for better decision making, such as planning? So I don't know who wants to take that one. Oscar, anybody? How will GEI help African governments to establish evaluation at the level of planning systems?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Reddy. Indeed, we want to first recognize that every country has different institutional setups, and we need to adapt the support of GEI to those institutional setups in each country. But improving the ability to use evaluation for planning and design of new programs and projects is of paramount importance. And let me very briefly also address the question on the civil society. Because for us, as Pernilla said, this is an exercise of strengthening democratic governance, and therefore the citizens' participation in the national evaluation system is critical, and not just the ones who are organized in NGOs or other type of organization, but also the common citizens. And how do we make the participation of common citizens systematic input for our national evaluation systems? That is a challenge, a collective challenge. And I hope that GEI, together with all the partners that are sitting around this table, would be able to address for the benefit of the people we are serving to in Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, we were celebrating the fact that we have youth, we have the presence of youth. So Fazila, if you can get yourself ready for this question. Okay, it's Branca from Angola. How do African countries that do not yet have evaluator associations and have independent evaluators, how can they benefit from GEI initiative? Are you comfortable, Are you comfortable taking that one, Fazila?
I think I can just start.
Sure.
If anyone else wants to add, they're welcome.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's definitely not a limitation for a country if they do not have a VOPE, a voluntary organization for professional evaluation, to not, do anything related to monitoring and evaluation. So they can definitely join forces, like you mentioned, in South Africa, in order to create that enabling environment, start collaborations with different stakeholders, like government, with civil society, NGOs, and any evaluators in the space, to then talk about it, and also develop a VOPE. So they can establish a VOPE. I know there is a VOPE toolkit that IOCE has developed or created, which can be found on their website. And they could actually start a voluntary organization for professional evaluators around that. So that's what I can contribute, and definitely if there's anyone else that would like to add to that, feel free.
Okay, anybody wants to add to that? Anybody? You can just unmute yourself and start talking. Anybody? Okay. All right, no, we don't have anybody else, but I think we've accommodated as many questions as we can, but unfortunately, you know, running out of time and all of that. But I do want to say that those of you who have asked questions and you made your contribution, you can continue to engage with GEI. You can contact GEI through its website. You can sign up for updates. I think this is important. You can sign up for updates or use the contact GEI option. The website address, here it is. It is www.globalevaluationinitiative. Very easy. www.globalevaluation.org. Let me give you that one once again, www.globalevaluationinitiative.org. So this has been such an inspiring moment. It has been so wonderful to hear an eclectic mix of stories and experiences, and most importantly, to see the commitment that so many of you have demonstrated through your contributions. And I really would like to thank you for participating in today's event, all the panelists, all the participants, all those who made a contribution, and those who put this event together. Thank you so very much. And I really hope and want to encourage everyone to continue this conversation on finding a way together, and that is the key word, finding a way together to close the gaps in monitoring and evaluation capacity. Thank you so very much. Now we close the session with a message recorded by Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, who is Ghana's Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation. Take care, everybody. Here's a message from Dr. Anthony.
Honorable Ministers, senior public sector international development officials, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the need and use of evidence in supporting decision making has never been as important as it is now. The COVID experience has shown that in the coming years, the world can face systemic challenges and uncertainty. In such a context, there's the need for countries to position themselves to be able to respond quickly and adequately from an informed perspective. The ability to provide evidence to support quick decision-making requires that we develop robust and appropriate M&E systems. The required improvements need to be underpinned by what is already in place and empower practitioners to be responsive and adaptive by taking proper account of their needs and context. We need to ensure that we enhance and empower people and systems already in place so that our chances of success are heightened. The Global Evaluation Initiative is an example of that kind of strategy, in that it seeks to build on what is already there and to operate collaboratively and through partnerships. Ghana has a proud history and a long-standing practice of making monitoring and evaluation a key driver of the country policies and programs by elevating MAE to the cabinet level. Ghana will continue to strengthen its MAE systems, especially promoting the generation and the use of evaluative evidence for policy making in partnership with civil society and international agencies, and looks forward to collaborating with the GEI in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure moderating for you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Good afternoon. Good day to all.
Merci, au revoir.
Yes.
Au revoir, à bientôt.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Obrigado.
Bye. Thank you so
Merci.
much. Muito obrigado.
Merci beaucoup.
Obrigada.
Obrigado.